If there's anything I've learned from being on this earth for my short 18 years, it's that setting big goals make those smaller goals 10 times easier to accomplish. Shoot for the moon, land in the stars kind of thing. So when I realized that I had to drive my car from Spokane, Washington, where I attend college, to my home, Austin, Texas, obviously I had to make it 10 times cooler than a simple road trip. But you already know that, because you read the title of the video. So here we go.
You became a stranger, and without you believing me, then you became a danger. I felt it was born to me.
So we started our trip in Spokane, Washington, and our first stop was Olympic National Park. The drive was about 7 hours. We got to our camping spot pretty late and just decided to go straight to sleep. And then in the morning, we looked around at the spot, ate breakfast, and headed into the park for our first hike of the trip. The hike we were doing was called Mount Storm King. The hike is about 4.1 miles with 2,000 feet in elevation gain to, you guessed it, the top of Mount Storm King. If you know a decent amount about hiking, this is pretty steep. You're gaining 2,000 feet in basically 2 miles since it is an out and back. And looking back on the trip, this was a really important wake-up call for us. I hadn't done a big trip like this in a few months, and Jaden hasn't really done any hikes longer than 1 or 2 miles, much less 2,000 feet of elevation gain. But amidst all the struggling, we made it to the top and were greeted with one of the craziest views I've ever experienced. At the top, Jaden and I ran into this guy, let's call him Birdman, who was equipped with 2 Ziploc bags full of bread slices. Birdman offered us a slice and told us that the birds up here are very friendly and love a snack. It was pretty cool being able to interact with the wildlife, especially being surrounded by such a beautiful view. And after a bit of bird watching, we called it a day and headed down Mount Storm King. On our way to the next national park, we stopped at the Oregon coast during sunset. I have a special place in my heart for the Oregon coast. I genuinely feel like there's not a lot of places like it in the world. It's this unique place where mountains meet the ocean, 2 things that you never really think of together at all, creating beautiful cliffsides and rock formations. And while I was sitting staring at this beautiful sunset, I realized that going on trips like these, you meet such different people that you quite literally could not imagine in your head. People like Birdman, who, from what he told us, hikes up Mount Storm King once a month just to feed the birds. Say what you want, but Birdman was a little weird. But that didn't matter. Birdman gave us bread, talked to us, told us about the birds in the area, and genuinely spread kindness and joy to Jaden and I. If we were in a city or just living our normal lives, I'm going to be honest, I would never stop and talk to Birdman, or really anyone that's carrying around 2 Ziploc bags full of bread. But because we were both outside, surrounded by this beautiful scenery, attempting the same goal, we were connected. I'm not sure how I went from the Oregon coast rock formations to a whole don't judge a book by its cover, but anyway, Jaden and I had to find a spot to sleep for the night.
Like a coin that won't get tossed, rolling home to you. Oh man, take a look at my life, I'm a lot like you. I need someone to love me the whole day through. I want look in my eyes and you can tell that's true.
Our next national park was Crater Lake, and with our arrival, Jaden and I noticed that a lot of the trails and most of the park itself was actually closed due to snow conditions. We didn't let this get us down though, and we still made our way into the park and found a little parking spot next to a pretty solid lookout of the lake. After hiking to the top, we got a beautiful view of the lake, and we then learned from a local that the lake was actually formed by a volcano. For some reason, I thought it was formed by a crater, and who knows where I got that idea from, but after staring at the lake for a while, we slid down the hill and headed for California.
On a dark desert highway.
On our way to the next national park, we stopped at a small general store called Chinese Camp. Keep in mind this store was literally in the middle of nowhere. The shop was run solely by a single Asian lady and her cat, which when I walked in was posted up on the register. Jaden and I joked that it sort of felt like a cutscene before heading in to fight the final boss. So we stocked up on snacks, talked to the nice lady, pet the cat, and headed back on the road for... After eating dinner, sitting by a fire, and hitting the hay, we woke up and drove straight into the park and were immediately greeted with some of the most stunning views I've ever seen in my entire life.
While she's been away, living day to day, it's been tough.
Alright guys, so we just ate breakfast in the parking lot, filled up with water, etc. But we're on the trail now, and it's supposed to be fairly popular, but based off the parking lot, there wasn't a lot of people, so I think we're chilling. We go by a waterfall. We're gonna get wet apparently, so that's cool. But yeah, we're hyped. We're looking forward to the hike, and I'll just kind of like show y'all some cool, very aesthetic videos and clips, and you know, just what I do. So like, type shit. At the peak of our hike, Jaden and I sat down and had a conversation where he told me this.
If you asked me a year ago if I would want to do a road trip around the US and just go to a bunch of parks, I probably would have not have wanted to.
And this was pretty surprising to me. I've known Jaden since second grade, and during this hike, he really opened up about his mental state in the past few years, and how he didn't really go outside much or think much of the outdoors. From what I understand, this trip changed Jaden's view on the outdoors entirely, and that's what nature can do. There's more to it than just waterfalls or mountains or animals. The outdoors brings a feeling of complete freedom and separation from regular, boring life, and Jaden's a testimony to that. I mean, in almost every clip I film, he has the biggest smile on his face, cheek to cheek, and is genuinely enjoying himself. So if you're inside right now, or you haven't gone on a trip in a while and you're thinking of a trip, just do it. I promise there's literally no possible way you will regret it. Anyway, we had to get down this mountain, but not without enjoying the views first.
My love, will you take my hand with virtue? For time has proved that I do love you. Will we ever find a way to make our time last forever? Because I begin to miss you.
After leaving Yosemite, our goal was to drive all the way to Zion and camp outside the park. However, we ran into some difficulty. As you guys can see, we got a flat tire. We ran over a nail, and we noticed because the tire pressure dropped significantly on the dash. Anyway, we pulled over to the closest town and swapped it out with the spare. But we then ran into some tire pressure issues with the spare, and we were basically stuck in this town for like 4.5 hours. By the time we were done, it was too late to drive all the way to Zion, so we just found a spot off the side of the highway and called it a night. Right when we woke up, Jaden and I decided we weren't going to let this get us down, and we were going to go into Zion excited. And honestly, without this little road bump, Zion wouldn't have felt like as much of a reward. So in the long run, thank you to the stupid nail that popped our tire.
Southern nights. Have you ever felt a southern night? tunes that you know and love so. Southern nights, just as good even when closed your eyes. I apologize to anyone who can truly say that he has found a better way.
So if you guys couldn't tell, we made it to Zion. And if you guys are familiar at all with popular hikes, we're doing Angel's Landing, which is one of the most popular hikes in the United States. You have to get a permit and stuff. It's pretty crazy, but it's basically just along this ridgeline in the middle of Zion, and you're really only held up by your 2 feet and these chains that are on the trail every now and then. And overall, it was a pretty cool experience. Zion is one of those places where it feels like a completely different planet, and you can't really comprehend how it's even on Earth. Angel's Landing in specific is one of those hikes where the hike itself is cooler than the final view. You're pulling yourself up these crazy rock formations on the side of a cliff, and it forces you to be completely present, because if you're not, you might fall. I don't think there's ever been a time in my life where my mind has been so clear on one distinct goal of completing the hike, and it's a pretty relaxing feeling. We get so caught up in due dates and deadlines, and our minds moving a million miles an hour, focused on so many different things. Everyone needs to just at some point take a step back and challenge yourself, whether it's a hike, whether it's a marathon, whether it's a goal in the gym, even a crossword puzzle, anything, and just experience. Anyway, as we made our way down and said goodbye to Zion, we headed for our next and final national park of the trip. And with 5 parks under our belts, Jaden and I soaked in the view one last time, hopped in my Tacoma, and headed home with a hefty 16-hour drive in front of us. But the trip wasn't over, because long car rides spark some of the best conversations and, in my opinion, can be just as beautiful as the views on any hike. The truth is, this trip wasn't about the views, or the national parks, or checking off bucket list hikes. It was about slowing down, it was about being present, and it was about finding the beauty in the struggle. Whether that was pushing through a steep climb, getting a flat tire in the middle of nowhere, or just sitting in silence with one of your best friends. We spend so much of life rushing from one thing to the next, trying to get somewhere. But this trip reminded me, you're already somewhere. You're in the moment that in 10 years from now, you'll be wishing you could go back to. So take that trip, sleep in that car, talk to strangers with Ziploc bags, maybe not all of them. Laugh hard, get lost, let the journey change you. Because these are the days you'll miss later, and you don't get a rewind. Anyway, thanks for coming along with us, and I love you guys. Till next time.
Knock, knock, knock.